Here we go.
Great. Well, hey, great to have such a nice group with us today. And obviously you guys have an interest in short-term teams, but also an interest in mobiles. Both are a passion for mine. I ended up on the field long-term, involved in missions because of some initial steps through short-term teams. So I have an appreciation for short-term teams. And so as time has gone on through my time on the field, I've developed that passion for what God can do through the use of mobiles and media. So this is two things that I'm very excited about. So I'm very delighted to share. Just a real quick note about me. I came from a business background, but felt God calling me into missions. And it was really through short-term teams that I finally took that step of getting involved full-time. Not that that's what God has for everybody, but for me it was. And I had an experience early on that I think proved foundational later for me moving into this area. I was hosting a short-term team out in a very remote city of Central Asia. It was a group of Australians coming over. They, of course, didn't speak any Kazakh. And what we would do when we would have these teams come in, we would have them live with a local family. Now, because they didn't have any language, because the Kazakhs they were living and serving among didn't speak any English, typically, they were involved in different types of projects, some development type work, maybe some business seminars with some translation, or working with an orphanage, things of that nature. But we would have them live with host families, and we wanted them to have that experience of being immersed in the culture and to demystify what life was like for a Muslim family. But our expectations for how they might impact those families wasn't great. That wasn't really a big part of why we had them with the host families, because the language difference was so significant. But we had a team come over, and these two young guys were staying with this local family, and they had some times to bond during the week when they were home with this family. And at the end of the week, they ended up presenting the family with a DVD. It was the Jesus film. And while they were out that day, doing their work, this family ended up watching that Jesus film. They watched it over and over and over again, and this family ended up coming to faith. Some of the very first believers, Muslim background believers in that whole area of that country. So I watched that and I was blown away. We didn't expect something like that to happen with our short-term teams, that they could have that type of an impact. And so as we move into this time together, I want us to try to expand our vision of what we expect God to be able to do through our short-term teams. And I think with the way technology has now shifted and what we have in our hands, in our pockets now with mobile devices and what we can carry on those devices, I think we can expect God to do some pretty neat things through our short-term teams, things that we didn't imagine were possible 10 years ago or further back. So we want God to expand our vision of what's possible. John 15:8 talks about bearing much fruit, and that we prove to be God's disciples by bearing much fruit. And as we send out short-term teams, we don't want to shortchange what God may want to do through them. Now, many of you, I'm not sure what kind of teams you may be sending out. Many of us, when we send out teams, they're more service-oriented. Maybe you're going to spend time in an orphanage, or do a construction project, or lead a VBS program. Some of them may be more evangelistic. Some of them may be prayer-oriented. But we go in with a particular objective that we want to accomplish. But what we're finding is with that device in our pockets now and what's possible with that device, I think it opens up the possibility that God can do even greater things through our teams beyond those service types of things that we often tend to go do with these short-term teams. So let's have that kind of vision as we're sending our teams out, as we're preparing them to go. Now, to put all of this in context, I want to just take a few minutes to talk about this thing called the mobile revolution. What's going on around the world today? What makes this possible? What makes us want to have this conversation today about using mobiles with our short-term teams? And we refer to this as the mobile revolution because it really has been that. It has been a global revolution that's been marching across the globe for the last 2 decades. and accelerated over the past 10 years. Now, what I've found is we in the West don't typically appreciate how significant, how profound this has been. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. First, we tend to pride ourselves in our technology, and we don't tend to think of others having the same types of technology we have. But you can walk into the smallest village in the most remote part of the world now and find people on mobile phones. There are more people with a mobile phone than there are toothbrushes. It is the one thing that people will give up anything to get. It is that important to them. And there's a reason for that. And this is the other reason why we don't fully appreciate how significant this has been. And that is for us, when we finally embraced mobiles, we were a bit late to the game, we in the West. We're a bit late to the mobile game. And that's because we had a well-developed infrastructure, right? We had all of us had landline phones, and we didn't have that burning need for getting connected through a mobile device. It was a nice convenience. And then when smartphones came along, that was a nice convenience as well. We didn't have to wait till we got home or to the office to get onto the internet or to check our email. We were able to do that anywhere. But it wasn't like it was filling a major need in our lives. It was just something that was a bit more convenient to do. And we've embraced that wholeheartedly now, obviously. But for the rest of the world, suddenly they had the opportunity with one small, affordable, pocketable, go-anywhere device, were able to leapfrog all of the technology that they had been missing out on, the ebook readers and the audio players and the video players and radios and gaming devices and GPS systems and camcorders and cameras and all of these things. They suddenly were able to leapfrog into the future and embrace all of this technology in one device that was accessible to them. And they've embraced that. And I think because much of the world was doing without all of that technology and suddenly now has it, it's proven to be an enormous game changer for cultures across the globe in ways that we, again, don't fully appreciate, because for us, that phone was really just another step of technology creep in our lives. So this mobile revolution has been huge. We passed a milestone last year. There are nearly 7.4 billion people in the world now, and there are now more mobile phone subscriptions in the world than there are people on the planet. More mobile phone subscriptions in the world than there are people on the planet. Now, it doesn't mean that there are more people using phones than there are people on the planet. That wouldn't work, right? But some people have multiple phone subscriptions. They may have a work account and a personal account, or they may even keep a couple of personal accounts because they get great service in one area with one account and great service in another area with another provider. So they have a couple of SIM cards that they swap in and out of their phones. But it does give us a good indicator of how deeply mobiles have penetrated. Now, why would we want to use mobiles for ministry? So they're everywhere. We get it. We walk down the street in a cafe, in an airport, or wherever we go, we're seeing everybody glued to their phones. We totally get that. But why would we use them for ministry? Most of us still don't really think in terms of this phone being a ministry tool. So we want to take a few minutes to look at some of the reasons why we may want to consider these, especially in sending out our short-term teams, using this device as a ministry tool. And I think first and foremost, it is a very highly contextual tool. The mobile phone is the most ubiquitous piece of technology in history. It is everywhere. And for that reason, it's a great device for ministry. When I went to Central Asia almost 20 years ago, if I wanted to show the Jesus film to somebody, it was a pretty awkward thing to do. I had to pull out a laptop computer, which itself was pretty advanced technology then. Or a little bit later on, I had a portable DVD player, which was a bit smaller. But still, to pull any of those things out was pretty awkward. It was not convenient carrying those things around. And it really stood out, very conspicuous, drew a lot of attention, and not in a good way. But a mobile phone is such a contextual device to use. Everyone knows how to use them. Everyone sees them everywhere. And it's just such a natural thing for us to do, to engage with people over a mobile device, because it's happening all around us every day. and just a wonderful, wonderful way to share. You can walk into any culture in the world today with that phone, and you're going to kind of fit in with that phone simply because everybody else has one as well. And they're doing all the same things on it that we do with ours. They're watching YouTube videos, and they're texting, and they're sharing pictures and posting to social media, and all those things that we do on our phones as well. So it's a very contextual device. It helps, I think, break down some of the divide that we have between cultures. Number two, of course, it's always with us, right? I didn't always have my portable DVD player with me or my laptop computer with me when I was in Central Asia. So if an opportunity arose for me to show somebody a little video clip, I was not prepared to do that. But with my mobile phone, I've got the ability now to always be ready to have something to share with someone, a video clip, maybe an audio story that I can pass along. It's always there. It's on my phone. If I have prepared my phone with media ahead of time that is appropriate to share with people, I'm ready to show that when the opportunity arises. And that, I think, is a big game changer. And it is for our short-term teams as well, because they're going to experience opportunities that they can either capitalize on or miss out on, depending on how prepared they are. And our mobile devices help us that much more prepared for making the most of those opportunities that God gives us. Number three, they're highly versatile devices. There's so many different things we can do with our mobile devices when it comes to our short-term teams. I mentioned media. Having media clips on our phones ready to show people. Let me ask you this: Have you ever yourself or seen this happen with anyone else? Have someone turn down watching a video clip on your phone? If you've approached them and said, "Hey, you've got to see this video," I've never seen anybody refuse to watch a video clip I've tried to show them. If there's something about it, there's something about the personal nature of a mobile phone, and just about how phones have shaped our culture and shaped all cultures now, that we love to see something on someone's phone, and that's true across cultures. So showing media on our phone, we can not only show media or play media. It might be an audio file, a little audio story, but we can also share it. We have the ability to easily, quickly pass a piece of media from one phone to another, and Brandon's going to get into some of the ways to do that. I think phones are just a great tool for connecting it. Again, going back to how contextual these devices are, I think they're great relationship building tools. Just say you've got a short-term team working with some kids, for example, and to say, "Hey, come here, let's get in, let's take a selfie together." You know, selfie entered the Oxford Dictionary as a word of the year a couple of years ago, right? Everybody around, as I travel around the world, everywhere people are taking selfies, right? And when you invite somebody to come be in a picture with you, doesn't it make you feel kind of special? That hey, somebody wants a picture with me, and they want to remember this moment. I think it's a way to communicate love to people. So even something simple like taking a picture on our phone with people, I think it communicates love. And then, of course, being able to quickly share that photo with that person that we've just taken the picture with. We have also have the ability to just be in better communication with those back home. Nowadays, live streaming is moving into the mainstream. We haven't really explored this a whole lot, and it's not going to be appropriate for all situations. But imagine now the possibility of for some teams being able to live stream, just for maybe a few minutes, maybe a brief segment of something that's happening right there on the field, being able to live stream that right back to their small group or to a service going on at their church back home. I mean, we have the capability of doing these types of things now, thanks to our mobile devices. So there's a whole variety of things that we can do through our mobile devices. Number 4, and I think this is really significant, many of our teams, of course, are going out to places where they don't speak the language, and this goes back to that media sharing that took place when I first went to the field back in Central Asia. But our mobile devices speak all of the languages that we don't. We may not be able to communicate something of deep meaning to those that we're serving, but we do have the ability to carry around in our pockets media that can speak to the heart of those people that we're serving. And that's a big deal. That's really significant. And number five, similar to that, not only can we show that to someone, media like that, to someone that really can speak to their heart in ways that we can't, but we have the ability now to leave something behind, something of value behind that can have an ongoing impact in that person's life. The ability to transfer media, and I don't know that we've had an easy way to do this in the past, but now with our mobile devices, with things like micro SD cards or simple phone-to-phone sharing, we're able to pass along a variety of media that we can leave with folks. When our team packs up to leave to head back home, we have the ability now to leave appropriate, valuable media that can continue to speak to the hearts of the people that we've gone to serve. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to come back in a few minutes, but I want Brandon to jump in here and talk a little bit more of some of the practical ways that we can serve. And then I'm open to take some questions at the end. So Brandon, on over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brian. That's great. And I don't know about you guys, but this just gets me excited. And Brian, you did a great job there setting up the stage of why this is important. Why do we care about mobile? Why is it useful for ministry? And so now probably all of you are wondering, all right, so I'm in. Sign me up. How do I do it? And that's my part of the presentation here. Like Benjamin said, I'm Brandon Honsalek with Renew World Outreach and transmitting from our world headquarters here in Social Circle, Georgia, the great metropolis down here outside of Atlanta. And I just to give you a little background of myself, I actually started my career out as an attorney and was a prosecutor in a local district attorney's office here. And I too, kind of like Brian, felt the Lord calling me, and I think he's given me a heart of an evangelist at my core. And so the Lord led me into this awesome opportunity, and I've now been with Renew for almost 4 years, and getting to live out this life as an evangelist and also playing with technology all the time, which I love. I absolutely love. So God is good to put me where He knew that I would be useful and where He wanted me to be. So,
all right. And Brian, can you stop sharing your screen so he can share his? There we go. Now it's over to you, Brandon.
Okay, good. Yeah. So here, I'll go ahead and put my screen on. And so hopefully everybody can see my screen, my goals here. So that's what we're going to start with. In order to really start talking about how you want to do this, you want to identify what do you want to try and accomplish. And there are lots of different things that you can try and do ministry-wise with your mobile devices and with your short-term teams. And so but you may have a lot of other things going on. You may be doing some of the activities Brian was talking about. And so it's important up at the front to think about what should our ministry goals with mobiles be. So I'm going to give you a few examples of things that I've seen people do, that we have done ourselves with our ministry, that I've done, and let you kind of think about this. And I would encourage you to brainstorm about this and write down some of these examples and think about what you want to do. So to start with, a quick story. We had one of our staff, Sarah, go down to Peru not long ago, and she was doing some mobile ministry training with a number of our staff down there, and some other missions folks, and they're mostly longer term type people, but a few short term people as well. And so what she had them do is she had them do sort of our standard training, where we get everybody in a room and we get them, show them how to use their mobiles for ministry, how to download Jesus Film and do things like that. And then she sent them out into the streets of Peru at the same time as the training. And she instructed them, okay, so take these Jesus Film clips, and I'm going to show you how to do all this. She said, take these Jesus Film clips, put them on your phone, and I want you to go out there and do street ministry. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to walk up to people and say, hey, how's it going? Hey, I've got this really cool video. Do you have a few minutes for a video? And of course, as Brian said, everybody's going to say yes, right? And so they say yes, and you show them the video and you show them a little clip from the Jesus film, maybe Jesus calming the storm or something like that, something really engaging. And then after that, you ask them some follow-up questions. Well, who did you identify with in the story? What did you think of that? And so these teams went and did this, and the end result was, this was just about a month and a half ago, 13 salvations, 13 people in the training. This was the training to train people how to go out and do this. And so this was in their training practicum. So that's just some of the fruit, talking about, being fruitful and the way that your mobile can help you be fruitful. Another thing you can do, and obviously I've got these list of few things you can do, goals you can have here. This is one I didn't put, but there was also a story where we helped a group called missions.me equip their short-term teams to be able to collect people's information. So they would have all these short-termers out there, and they would be praying for people, they would be witnessing to people, doing all this stuff. And a lot of times we don't think, oh, how am I going to follow up with this person? This person gets encountered by God, they get touched, they decide to follow Jesus, something great happens in their life, and then you're gone. And, Lord willing, by his grace, great things can happen, but you can help that process. And so we actually made this unique app for them to be able to then record the person's email address, things like that. And then they plug those people back into the local church. So that's something to think about. Maybe you want to try and do that. And you don't necessarily have to have a custom app. You can just come up with a simple way of just making sure you get an email address or something like that. So the 4 I have here: distributing gospel media, showing Jesus film clips, showing video testimonies, recording video testimonies. That's something that can be overlooked but can be helpful on a number of different levels. When you get somebody who gets touched, you record that video, and we know from Revelation that we overcome by the blood of Jesus and the word of our testimony. And so these testimonies are powerful pieces that we can capture and then use again in another context. So think about those goals and what you want to do. But the main, I would venture to say probably the main goal of your mobile ministry activity with your short-termers is going to be revolving around showing and distributing media. And that's where you really have a lot of power, because as a short-termer or even a long-termer, you're not going to know the language very, very likely. And so all the media that's out there is what opens up the box for you to be able to really have a tangible impact, spiritual impact on people's lives. So when I say get media, there's a couple things you can do. You can do an app like the Jesus Film Media app, the Bible.is Audio Bible app, everybody, there's lots of different apps out there. GRN's got an app, lots of partners that we work with will have apps. And so you can get an app. The challenge with an app, though, is if you're going to an area that doesn't have great connectivity, which is most of the third world, then your app is going to be very limiting, because it's going to want to try and talk to the internet to get the content. And so you can use an app, and you just have to make sure when you're using that app that before you go on your trip, while you have good internet connectivity, you download the media ahead of time onto the app. So you can get the app and use it. I'm not really going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the other method, which is actually just downloading the media files themselves, so that you have some more versatility in what you can do and how you can share and how you can show that kind of stuff. So media, what are your options? I've kind of broken it down into core media and sort of additional media. And to me, the core is the Bible. It's the gospel. And so I would encourage anybody who goes on any type of missions related trip or does any type of ministry activity, that's got to be your number one. You've got to get people the gospel. And so great ways to do that: the audio Bible, if you know that people are going to read the text Bible, the Jesus film, a very good, simple, close to scripture presentation of the life of Jesus with the Jesus film, the GRN, Global Recordings Network, they create this little 30-minute clip called The Good News, which is a gospel presentation. And these media pieces are going to be in most of the languages of the world. You're going to be able to find, GRN actually has the most. So if you're going to a rarer language group, you're going to want to look at GRN. And I've got all the websites there. And all those websites are sites where you can actually download the media. So there's lots of sites out there on the internet where you can sort of find them, but then how do you actually get it and download it? But these ones I've listed, you probably want to make note of these and go to these sites, because these are ones where there's actually a download link somewhere to get this media and use this media. And also these slides, I think we'll share them with you later on so you can get it if you didn't take the notes. And then additional media. This can be really useful and really helpful. And one thing that you want to do is work with your in-country partner, your national indigenous person, whoever it is, and find out what is going to be culturally appropriate types of media. But I've given you a few examples. And Carol, I'm sure, will be happy with me plugging in digitube.tv. Clyde's happy with me plugging Visual Story Network. But there's other stuff out there too, and probably some of you others who are listening have good stuff. And feel free to, if you do have lots of stuff with lots of languages that's available to download and use for free, please send that, let us know, and we'll plug that kind of stuff as well. So here's some other thoughts of things that you could do and you could use that may be helpful, maybe enticing to use evangelistically or for discipleship, and depending on what your context is. So downloading media, how do I do this? And one thing that you're going to want to do at the front end of planning your trip is identify your geeks. Everybody's got them. Pretty much every organization has at least one hardcore geek, and you usually don't know what to do with that guy, and he's awkward or girl. And, it's like they know everything about computers and technology and everything. That person is incredibly valuable for this. So you need that person, and that person is going to be who's going to enable the rest of your team to do this stuff. So you find that person, and then you can point that person to our website, renewoutreach.com/mobile ministry. We've got some really good tutorials on there about how do I actually practically download the media files. Because I didn't want to get in this webinar, I didn't want to get into all the details of the technical, but we've got real good tutorials. There are other places out there on the web too. We'll give you some links at the end here. But find your tech geek and send them here, and they will learn how to download all the media from the different media providers, get them on a computer, get them onto an SD card, get them onto your phone. And so you have that media available and you have it with you to use. And then this brings me to the most important part of prepping your team. You've got to do the hands-on training. Anytime that I've gone and done a presentation with pastors or teams or whoever, this is always the most valuable component, because I'll get up there and talk about how great mobiles are and talk about what's an SD card and what's Bluetooth and what's Wi-Fi, and everybody nods their heads and smiles and says, yay, yay, hooray, hooray, hooray. Then they walk away and they're like, wait, what do we do? What's a SIM card? I took out my SIM card. I can't make calls. No, it's not a SIM card. It's my SD card. So you have to go through these issues, and the best way to go through them is just have a practical hands-on training. So you want to schedule ideally a full day. I would give a full day to it. If you can't, at least a half a day, where you have your whole short-term team together. You've already teed up your geek to have downloaded the media, identified the language of the people you're going to. You've talked to your local person, you know what some good media is, and then you set everybody up and you do this hands-on training. And here's what you do during your training. And I would encourage you to kind of write down this checklist of things you want to have people do. So like I said, you already have your media available, you already have everything ready that you're planning to use, and you need to get everybody to whip out their phone. They need to figure out, how do I get to a file on my phone? How do I use my file manager? How do I use the basic Android video player. And while I'm on this, you have to help people understand what kind of phone they have. And I hate this for short-term people, but iPhones are not great for this. You're going to be able to show media to people on your phone, but you're not going to be able to, you'll have a harder time sharing the media. So ideally you need an Android, which is a Samsung or a similar HTC or one of those type devices that uses the Android operating system. But if you get everybody in the room and they all have their phones out, you'll be able to address those issues, and you'll be able to figure out, okay, this person has this type of phone, so it has this functionality, and so on and so forth. So they've got to get into the file manager, locate the media. They've got to figure out how to copy files to and from micro SD cards. And this is how you do sharing, because you can do it with micro SD cards, you can do it with Bluetooth, you can do it with Wi-Fi Direct, and this is peer-to-peer sharing. So it's phone-to-phone sharing. It's not using the internet. And that's vital, because you're going to be in Peru, in Indonesia, in wherever, in Africa, in the Middle East, and there's not going to be internet access. There's not going to be 3G. There's not going to be good Wi-Fi. So you're not going to be downloading videos and audio over the internet. So you've got to be able to share directly from your phone to another person's phone. And so micro SD cards, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi Direct or Android Beam are the way you do that. And so you get your tech geek in there and you help them have everybody in the room do this stuff. Actually have them do it with their phone. Another thing you can do is have people practice recording their video testimony. That can be powerful for an outreach. Just have everybody on your team go ahead and throw up their phone, do a selfie video of them sharing their testimony, and then practice sharing that with people. And then lastly, bam, you send them out. Go to the streets, go to the highways, the hedges, call people in. There are people out there that need to be at the marriage supper of the Lamb.
Amen.
So this is a vitally important component of your training. And here's a little checklist of how you train people to go out on the street. And we've seen this work well in the U.S. It works great. I mean, I've walked up to, we've had, you can do this in a restaurant. You get like an international server and you ask them their language and show them some media. And so there's a little checklist. You greet them, say, hey, can I show you some media? Everybody says yes. Then you talk to them about the media, get a God conversation going. And then, depending on how that goes, you can invite them, say, hey, you need to give your life to Jesus. Follow Jesus. Here's what he's done in my life. And then you have an opportunity to pray with them and do everything else. And then leave them with the media. Give them the gospel, give them the Bible. And that's my timer. Hit right at 15 minutes. So I'll turn it back to Brian.
So you have to stop share so he can start sharing.
Yep, there we go.
Over to you, Brian. Are you there, Brian?
All right, I am. Can you guys hear me again?
Hear you, not see your screen. There we go. Back to you.
There we go.
Okay.
Get rid of that there. Great. Well, Brandon, thanks a lot. I hope you guys found those practical steps very helpful. We just want to end with a few more little practical tips. Brandon has touched on a couple of these, but just a few more little thoughts that we want to leave you guys with to help better equip you. As Brandon mentioned, practice before you go. And as Brandon also said, at practice, I think you'll be amazed at the impact you'll have even during practice sessions. Take your team down to an ethnic restaurant or a local ethnic shopping area and just try to do some sharing there. Just get the experience of actually doing this for your own sake, so you can actually do it a little bit more easily or more comfortable with the process. But also expect that God's can actually touch lives even as you do those practicums. I've seen that happen over and over again. Secondly, prepare to use your phone abroad. Many people don't know, if you're in the States, if you've got T-Mobile, you go with free international coverage, unlimited data overseas, which is really nice. But if you don't, check with your phone provider to see what kind of coverage you can set up while you're overseas. Usually they have some special plans available for a short period of time to make using your mobile device easier. Now, if you've got kids coming on your trip, that may not be something you want them to be able to do, but their phones are useful nonetheless, even if they don't have local service. They don't need that to use their phone as a ministry tool. But the other option you have is to get a local SIM card to slip into your phone. That can be a nice option as well, and far more affordable than trying to pay for service with your Western provider when you're overseas. Number 3, bring a multi-port portable charger. If you're not familiar with these, they're more and more common. It's just a little battery pack that allows you to charge your phone on the go. That's helpful for our own purposes so that our own phones are charged up and we can make the most use out of them. But it's also a great way to serve people, is to offer to charge up their phones. And if you're going to a more remote area where electricity can be an issue sometimes or frequently, then it's very likely that they're going to have phones, and they're always going to be looking for ways that they can get those phones charged up. And to have one of these little portable battery chargers, or to have several on the team bring these along, maybe even plan on leaving them behind. It's just a great practical way to serve people and can benefit you while you're there as well. Number 4, seek the counsel of those that are on the field. We want to find out as much as possible everything that we do. If we're going to serve a team that's already on the field, whether it's a local team or an expat team that's there living cross-culturally, we want to go to support them. We want to seek their input, both in terms of what media might be appropriate, but also what would it look like and how might it impact them if we're using our mobile devices. And it's really going to depend. The issues that you might encounter with that are going to depend on the location that you're going. So just, again, communicate with the team that you're going to serve about those things. Number 5, one of the biggest, what I find is most short-term teams that are going over that are youth-based, they're teenagers. There almost seems to be a set policy: leave your devices at home. Right? We all know how distracting those devices are for youth, especially. And if we're honest, they're distracting for us as well. Right? It's true for all of us, but especially for youth. I think it's a valid concern. But I hope that we've helped make the case that our phones can be used in some pretty incredible ways to minister to people. There's a lot of compelling reasons to allow them to bring those phones. We just need to teach them to see these devices as kingdom-building tools. And it's okay to set limits. Even gather those phones. They don't have to have them with them at all times. They don't need to have them with them when they go to bed at night. Give them some defined times that they can actually use those phones for their own purposes, but then set them loose with them when they're out serving the people so that they can do some of these things that we've talked about. Number 6, Brandon mentioned this: consider bringing an older device or buying a cheap Android phone. You may not need to do this. Again, it's going to depend on the context of where you're going and what types of phones people may be using. Get the input of those on the field that you're going to serve. But a cheap Android phone is almost always of value. It uses those micro SD cards. If you lose it or break it, it's not going to be as much of an issue. You can get a cheap Android phone for as little as $10 or $20 nowadays. And so that might be a good option as well.
All right.
And lastly, a couple of resources. Brandon mentioned some of these. There is a guide that we put together, helped put together. It's called Mobile Ministry Made Easy, along with a second one called Your Phone, God's Glory. Both of these step you through some of the types of things that we've talked about here. Your Phone, God's Glory goes a bit more in depth, practical tutorials on how to do things, some of these things, copying micro SD cards, sharing with Bluetooth. It walks you through those. The Mobile Ministry Made Easy guide is a bit more of an overview. It's going to just share the bigger picture of some of the things that are possible to do with your mobile phone. Both of those, along with other resources, are available on the MMF's website, mobileministryforum.org. Or if it's easier to remember, we have a short URL, mobmin.org. Number 4, ask a question on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, we use the hashtag mobmin. And you can use that to go ask a question, and good chance you're going to get a response. If you're looking for a resource or how to do something, a question about security, any of those types of issues, feel free to post that on Twitter, and there's a good chance you're going to get a response there. And then Brandon's email address, my email address are here. Feel free to reach out to us. be happy to answer any questions you may have as best as we're able to do that. Number 7, YouTube. Let's not forget YouTube, the great teacher in the sky. It's always accessible to us. So if you're looking for practical help on how to do something on your phone, look it up. It's almost certainly there on YouTube already. And 8th, Renew World Outreach, the organization that Brandon's with, has some great tutorials that they've done on some different things you can do with your phone. And there's a short URL there, bit.ly/RWO for Renew World Outreach -mobiles. Okay, so Benjamin, that's it for me. And we're happy to take some questions now, but I hope that was helpful.
Great. And Brian, if you don't mind, stop sharing your screen, then we can see people as they ask questions. I'll just comment, and then if you're muted, I've given you the ability to click, I think, on your icon or somewhere, and you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, if I unmute everyone, we'll just have a lot of background noise. And maybe you can be looking, Benjamin, through the chat box. But questions, comments? I'm sorry, Benjamin, over to you.
Yeah, we do have 2 questions, so I'll go with them real quick. Some of them may have gotten answered in the chat already, but I'll just go ahead and ask them. Mark asked, is someone going to talk about the expected lack, or when we expect the lack of connectivity to be an issue in the third world? So basically, when will the connectivity issue not be an issue anymore? And I think that Brian had something to say about that.
Well, yeah, it's a good question. Let me make a couple of comments. First, if you're going into areas that where connectivity is an issue, remember that the mobile phone, a lot of what we talked about is doable without any kind of connectivity whatsoever. If you go ahead of time with that media already on your phones, then you don't have to worry about connecting. A lot of the sharing options that we mentioned, those are all doable without any type of Wi-Fi or cellular connectivity. So that's one of the neat things about mobile devices, is they work no matter where you are in the world. Of course, that connectivity is nice to have, and it opens up other opportunities. And connectivity is expanding rapidly. And there's a lot of efforts happening to bring the internet and mobile connectivity where it isn't today. There are things like Project Loon, which is a Google effort. They're actually floating. This is actually in service now. They're floating balloons that are delivering internet service to mobile devices in remote parts of the world, and they're expanding that. Google is doing this, Facebook. This is a big effort from Mark Zuckerberg with his internet.org backed organization, trying to use drones and investigate other technologies. They've partnered sometimes with local telecom providers to provide people with free social media access. So things are changing. They're changing pretty rapidly. There are obviously many pockets still where connectivity is an issue, and it's really going to depend on where you are. But I don't want to give a projection of where. There's just too many variables involved to be able to say when connectivity is going to be solved. But it is coming, and it's coming quickly.
And I'll add to that too, just real quick. Just be prepared anyway. I mean, even as an attorney, when I was training for a trial, prepping for a trial, you always test everything ahead of time. The last thing you want to do is be sitting there and relying on the internet connection to have your presentation. Just get prepared ahead of time. It's not that hard. Download your stuff ahead of time and expect that it's not going to work. The internet's not going to work.
All right, so we'll go ahead and let you guys unmute yourselves and ask questions if you have additional ones.
Comment briefly on Scripture App Builder, Brian.
Okay, the Scripture App Builder is an SIL developed tool that allows it allows non-programmers to create native Android apps and soon native iOS apps for iPhones and iPods, iPads. For non-programmers, you can actually create apps, not just Bible apps. So the Bible apps actually require you to have access to the Bible texts in a particular format, and most people are not going to have easy access to those. There are ways of getting them, but you can also even take something like a Word document and create a very simple kind of a flipbook type of app if you can create a Word document, you can convert that into an Android app very, very quickly in a single day. And so that opens up all kinds of opportunities, whether you're trying to share practical help type of information, hygiene-related, medical-related resources, or a gospel presentation in the local language, or some discipleship resources. If you can put it in a Word document, you can put it into an Android app pretty easily using the Scripture App Builder tool. It's a free tool, and if you Google it, Scripture App Builder, you'll find it on the web, and there are some tutorials that can help get you started in how to use that.
And one more. Brandon, did you comment on Colo? If not, could you briefly?
Yeah, there's another app out there called the Colo app that has some of the offline sharing capabilities built into it. I think it's called Colo World, and you can find it on the Apple, the iOS store, and the iTunes store, and the Google Play store.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I did have, I guess, another one that I can throw out there that came in. Will the iOS be more capable of sharing media like Android platforms soon? Mark asked that question as well. So I actually responded to that in chat, but my response was, generally speaking, Apple, over the years, we've seen to hang on to their proprietary technology a lot more, and they tend to be a little bit more closed in their development to keep it inside of Apple in a way to perhaps bring more people into the Apple community rather than to open up their technology to be accessible by other technologies. So typically Android being open source and the providers of those phone providers to that OS system allow for that adaptability and that cross compatibility that exists there with Android, whereas Apple tends to be much more closed. But if anybody else has anything to say about that, they're welcome to chime in.
Yeah, Benjamin, I did notice actually just an announcement yesterday from Lexar. They're a popular maker of media technology. They've just announced a new micro SD card reader and writer that has it's just a little tiny device. It's designed to plug into the Lightning connector of an iPhone or an iPad, and so they're trying to meet that need, knowing that micro SD cards are a great way of sharing. So those are available. They're way overpriced, as everything with Apple seems to be, but we are seeing some of those products there. But still, Android in general tends to be a lot more flexible in its ability to share. Apple just doesn't play well with non-Apple devices.
That's true. Yeah, and that's good. So there are solutions potentially coming, and as people make those types of little tools to allow SD cards to be connected with Apple, people are going to knock that off and build cheaper ones as time goes on. So that's something to be watching for.
And then Donald had how to obtain copy notes. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to actually post on the Mobile Ministry Forum site, hopefully in the next 48 hours, maybe sooner, a summary with, again, the recording and the web deck or the slide decks, some notes and links and so forth. So you can just go to mobmin.org in the next day or so and look for that under the blog post. It should be like up at the top.
Hey, Clyde. I threw up a last slide here. Just a quick ask for those of you that may be sending short-term teams out, and if you embrace some of this and you have some stories to share, the Mobile Ministry Forum, we're here to serve as catalysts, and we love to hear those stories, and we like to share your stories as well, because we want to inspire others to embrace these things and to make the best use of them as well. And your stories are so helpful in encouraging others to do just that. So if you have some stories to share after coming back, the good, the bad, the ugly, we want to be able to learn from those and inspire others with those as well. So consider sending us a little update and telling us what you did, how you may have used some of this, and and let us know if we can share that with others.
So, Benjamin, can I give a couple quick announcements?
Yes, please go for it.
Yeah, a couple things. So again, we'll post these notes as quickly as possible, and we'd ask you to share them. So, you represent a lot of people, a lot of organizations already in this call, but I think, how many, I don't know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people will go on short-term missions this summer. Sadly, the large majority of them will either leave their phones at home or not have the first clue about how to integrate them into their short-term outreach. So kind of help us get this word out. Again, we're a coalition of people who want to help foster a movement so that the gospel gets to go out around the world. We actually will do a full-on consultation. We've done a few of them. We will do one next year after the Eurasia Media and Distribution Consultation. That will be in the EMDC will be end of March, early April, and I think our dates will be about April the 8th and 9th in Holland next year. We do offer a lot of resources, again, at mobmin.org, including an online course that we will offer probably, again, in the fall. We're offering a course in June on kind of managing a mobile ministry project. So, again, go to that mobmin.org site to keep up to speed with that. Lots of resources that we post there. We try to aggregate. So, we're not an official organization. We all represent other organizations. But we try to find and capture and then promote best practices and products. That's what I got. Final thoughts, maybe just from everybody. Go ahead, Benjamin.
It's been a good conversation. I've been having some private conversations with a few people, so I'm a little